animal. Last time I looked, I was one of those, so no contract. Another example, when asking who does this bylaw apply to, who does it bind? The Animal Welfare Act states this act binds the Crown. Well, I sort of like crowns, they're nice to look at, but I'm certainly not the Crown, and I do not belong to one, and so cannot be legislated upon as if I were. Neither can you, and I'm pretty sure neither can my cats. No contract. The bylaw definition of person is interesting, a natural person and also a body of persons, whether corporate or unincorporated. If you look up the definition of those terms in the New Zealand legislation interpretations, it says a person is a corporation soul, a body corporate, or an unincorporated body. Nope, not me. Anybody? No. No contract. Council may grant, with or without conditions, or refuse any application for a permit at its discretion. So vague and such uncertainty. No contract. Any recourse for us if things go wrong? We can, here comes that word again, submit, read beg, for a review, and council may review it. May review it, not will. And review, not reevaluate, reassess, reapply. No promises made here, no contract. No contract, and I'm alive, so you don't own me. No contract, no authority. What now? This Keeping Animals bylaw is a local body initiative, not a government directive. So there's no veiled threat of fines to hide behind this time, Scott, and no onus to avoid and no buck to pass. So perhaps time to assess your values and future actions. I feel like your ancestors must be turning in their graves, but it's your living friends and family I feel for the most. You may go through your day feeling quite proud of your role in local government, either oblivious or unconcerned as to the mood in your community. They have the walk of shame. They have to work, live, parent, play sport, and shop amongst us, and must be keenly aware of the derision and resentment that's building in the district. You have an opportunity now to be open and relieve them of their shame, to do the right thing and work with us to correct the wrongs and alleviate the dissent and the distress that these corporations are inflicting. Corporation that you're part of and that you're signing documents for with your name and your signature. You're contracting with them. Consider yourselves on notice. You need to be willing to meet and to right these wrongs now. Failing that, we reserve our right to use whatever means reasonably necessary to restore justice. Reasonable, now there's a vague term. I'd get that clarified if I were you. We expect a town meeting to be called to discuss these matters in absolute honour and respect.
Thank you, Leah. Any questions, Leah? Sorry, we try to use the time to be able to seek clarification.
You're letting me know my time was
No. That was for your speaking time, just to allow a chance for us to have a chance for questions, if that's all right. Councillor Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair Sharon. Really nice to see you again, Leah. Just one question on that. You've provided quite a lot of information. To the best of your knowledge, has any of the sort of concepts that you've raised ever been upheld in New Zealand courts before?
Do I need to answer? Do I need to answer that, or can I ask someone else to answer that question if you need the answer? I know of many cases. I'm dealing with probably 4 different groups of people that are all personally having cases in court. And while it is the byline that this is a sovereign citizen movement, which again tries to bring us into contract because citizen is part of a political movement. No, but that's what we keep getting told in paperwork. We're not sovereign citizens. We're sovereign, yes. We control our own affairs, but we're not citizens because that makes you part of a political movement, which we are not. There are plenty of people having amazing results, and so yes, to my knowledge, and I could actually give you a big list if you would like them. And so, yeah, the line is that this is not being upheld in court, but court gets completely stumped by this. We've recently had a case through the High Court in New Zealand. They threw it out without doing due diligence and due process to justice. So that's going to the next level. Yeah.
Appreciate you taking the time, putting in your words of wisdom to share with us today. So thank you very much for that. You're very welcome to stay on for the rest of the afternoon.
And I know this was quite hard worded. everybody's been through a lot, but I do want everyone to know that I am willing and open to work for a better future for everybody and for things to be done lawfully and to sort out what's wrong with the legislation. And I know plenty of people that have the skills to do that. So
That was clear from
office
your
there.
presentation. Thank you, Leah. Right, I think we now have Jessie. Okay, so we'll skip back to a presentation from, there she goes. Jessie, welcome. So you're here to speak to your submission from Predator Free New Zealand. So you would have had the indication you've got about 10 minutes, which would be nice to include questions in there if you're able. So clean your hands. Welcome very much to all of us. Where are you speaking from, Jessie?
I'm speaking from Wellington today.
Fantastic. No.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you so much for having me, and I would like to just congratulate you all for your progressive stance around cats and your animal bylaw. We are seeing this move happen across the country now as councils are renewing their bylaws, and there are now about 25 councils around the country that have measures around cat controls in their animal bylaw, and it's really to set an expectation of what responsible cat management looks like, and an expectation for cat owners of what, if you're undertaking to look after a cat moving forward, getting a kitten or whatever, then these are the things that are expected from you in order to look after that cat. Cats are really interesting because they're really important companions in New Zealand, but they're also devastating predators to our native wildlife, and they hunt our birds, lizards, bats. They poop in people's gardens, and the onus to date has really been on the non-cat owners to stop cats walking across their property, whereas really it should be on the cat owners. You should be able to keep cats out of your property or preventing them pooping in your garden. So desexing obviously prevents this unwanted kittens, and we know that the number of cats in New Zealand is problematic, and we have a lot of stray or unwanted kittens. And then microchipping allows for cats to be returned in the event that they're lost, or in the Christchurch earthquake, about 80% of microchipped cats got returned, whereas for unmicrochipped cats, it was far lower, I think, in kind of the low 10% range. And also it allows us to undertake control of feral cats in areas that are near urban settlements. So that involves kind of live capture of cats, scanning cats to see if they've got a microchip, and then if they are a feral cat, you'll be able to dispatch of that cat, and if they're an owned cat, you can return them to the owner. So I think this is a really important stance for the district and actually across the country. As part of this, I would recommend you to also invest in a bit of an education campaign in your community. So partner with vets, have some information on your website, have enough time for people to adapt, to know that they have got a certain timeline before their cats need to be microchipped and desexed. And I know the SPCA have helped in some areas with snip and chip campaigns, and I'd kind of highly recommend you investigate that. Otherwise, we're really supportive of these measures in the animal bylaw, and so support you doing that, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jessie. I have just a quick one. In your presentation in writing to us, you advised a phasing in approach, giving people time to desex and microchip their pets. How long is a phasing in period? I mean, I guess, like you're saying, if we looked at an education campaign in association with the vets, we were able to find some way of resourcing or incentivising through snip and chip. What is a transition period look like before the application of the bylaw would
Yeah, good question. I think in Wellington, they allowed about a year. So, and in that time, they kind of said, you know, from the 1st of June in a year's time, cats need to be microchipped and desexed. And in that time, they ran a bunch of education campaigns, awareness campaigns to get cats microchipped and desexed. You might like to consider that cats over 12 or something like that, you know, don't need to be microchipped because it's kind of too late. Maybe I don't actually know what other councils have done in that regard. Microchipping is actually relatively inexpensive, though. So yeah, so I would just recommend I'd say a year is probably sufficient to give people notice.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jessie? Mayor Tracy.
Thanks, Chair Sharon. Thanks, Jessie. In your submission, you asked us to consider further restrictions around feeding of stray cats. Have you seen that in other councils? What does that look like? Can you offer any solutions there?
Yes, it is in other bylaws. Let me just have a quick look who has got it in, because I can tell you that. So Ruapehu District Council has that in, that no person shall feed or attract feral cats to their premises. And then New Plymouth District Council also has it. I can't tell you the exact wording. And I know it's in the Wellington Regional Council RPMP also, about not being able to feed stray cats on other people's properties without their express permission. So on no council land, but then without the express permission of any private landowner. No worries. That is, it is a bit of in certain areas, feeding of stray cats is really problematic, and it often happens without the buy-in of the landowner. And often those cats are living in stray cat colonies that are unhealthy, they're desexed, all those things. Yeah, stray cat populations are really important to control.
Any other questions? It's probably a bit hard to see some of us around this table here, Jessie, but we really appreciate you joining us and taking the time today. We will be doing our deliberations towards the end of the month. But every viewpoint we're receiving is certainly of interest to all of us around the table. So thank you for taking your time. You're welcome to stay online, Jessie, if you're interested in any of the other submissions that are coming through. It's lovely to see.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right. So we are on time, everyone. Got Hangy though, we know. But we have Robin. You were due for coming to speak to us, Robin, at 1:50, but do you mind? Oh no, hold on, here he comes. Henny, are you ready to go?
Oh. I was promised to have a seat there, so
No, you can actually come to the. You're on.
You're on.
They're all here to hear you. So welcome and thank you for coming in and taking the time to present to your submission, which for all of our councillors is on page 145. So you've got 10 minutes, and if you're able to stick to that, we'll have time for questions afterwards. Welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm a rural person, and I'm here out of fear for what the Tararua District Council is becoming. I'd hope that the councillors have taken the time to read my submission and that of others. Even though I'm not directly affected by this bylaw attempt.
Sorry, Henny, you need to push the button. There's a talk button in front of you.
Most people say that I'm loud enough.
I can explain that true, but we need to. Thank you.
Sorry, if people can't hear me, then speak up again. Is it better? Do I start again? So you could hear me. Right, thank you. So even though I'm not affected directly by the bylaw attempt, I'm helping to pay for the process and the outcomes of the discussion of keeping of animals bylaw 2024.
And therefore, I'd like to reiterate that in no uncertain terms, I am totally against the Tararua District Council spending any time whatsoever, and money even more, on bombarding our own ratepayers with petty bylaws to be able to cope with the lady with the cats. I think it's absolutely daft that we're all here today listening to each other. There are good laws in place to deal with anyone's activities if it is if it goes across their property boundaries and negatively affects neighboring properties, be that smell, noise, leaching, other pollution, etc. There are also good laws in place to deal with animal rights. If anyone is found wanting with regards to the treatment of animals in their care, those rules apply to both rural and urban people. The council has all handles in place and yet chooses to empire build and trying to make themselves another lever to pull in order to bamboozle its very citizens. We, the ratepayers, and I can tell you that I'm a significant contributor, have elected councillors to deal with basic amenities, roading, water, and waste. And it's fair to say that you're already seriously struggling to deal with it in a cost-effective way. So I'd encourage you to stick to your knitting. It has become an unsavory habit of our elected representatives to interfere with all kinds of things they're not supposed to and let ratepayers foot the bill. It is plainly clear that either the councillors are lacking serious common sense mindset or they have got no understanding of their position within the Tararua community. Furthermore, lying to the community about surrounding councils having introduced similar bylaws to lure the ratepayers into accepting this move is entirely not on and not helpful, fostering trust in the current set of councillors. I'm absolutely flabbergasted to come here and draw your attention to issues that you are trying to address that you are going to be unfit for dealing with. I seriously question councillors' foresight for instigating bylaws like this, whether it was devised by your staff or from further up the ladder. I urge you to start getting your bodily functions back in order because the tail is firmly wagging the dog here. There's no need for a council if it can't stand on its own feet and look after its ratepayers' business. This bylaw is a perfect example of empire building, as I said, and it has the clear potential for enforcement and over time will increase bureaucracy through interference and compliance that well-meaning Tararua people are already sick and tired of. There is absolutely nothing in this bylaw proposal that is Tararua specific. And therefore the question has to be asked, what is Tararua Council trying to pull here? And I'm trying to remind you all here that the Tararua District Council values are to be true, valid, honest, genuine, and sincere. And multiple values have been violated by this bylaw proposal. Thank you very much for listening.
Stay there because you've allowed us some time to ask some questions for clarity. If anyone around the council table has any questions for Annie? Mayor Tracy.
Thanks, Chair Sharon. I was just wondering if I can probably pass to Jim in his role. Henny was talking about other laws being able to deal with some of these issues. Have you got some examples where those laws don't work within our district and why we need the bylaw?
Yes, through the chair. Firstly, district councils are tasked from central government under the Local Government Act to address nuisances. The only way they can do that is from the Act giving us permission to create bylaws. So when there isn't sufficient legislation or regulation for a particular problem in an area, and believe me, we've got problems, then we need to regulate by way of bylaw. So a classic example would be the rooster crowing at 3 in the morning in a residential area. Nothing covers that in legislation other than a bylaw. So there's a number of things there that we need. And I do have to cross swords with the submitter as far as saying that we're the only council. I know that there are many councils. In fact, Napier and Hastings, for a start, are very close by. South Taranaki have that as well. Many councils have examples of bylaws that to control their animals, which is why you don't see herds of cows in Queenstra and Northland. We have to differentiate the zonage, and there are rules for each zone. People have got a right to peace, quiet. If you want to graze a whole lot of cows or alpacas, buy a farm. These are basically the rules.
You can be commended for that, and I agree with a lot of what you were trying to say. Sorry, Mayor, if I interfere here. However, there's no.
Please, Henny, the
So,
red one.
do I get shut off every time?
No, you don't. It just goes to the speaker at the time. It's one way of me being able to.
Sorry, I'm not a tech, I'm not known for my tech stuff. So very good comments there. However, again, none of it needs to be worked out here. If your rooster crows in Wellington or in Rotorua or wherever they do, that can be dealt with there. So then we should really get on to our national politicians to sort that out and then have one law for everybody rather than spending all this. These people all cost money here. I pay for that. Or I help pay for that, I should say. There is no need for that. We can do that at home and then pay our Wellington representative to deal with it, because the sort of nuisance that you're talking about is right across the board everywhere. We don't need to deal with it here. So it's completely over the top that we're going to be the same here as Rotorua talking about Gaza. It's just crap we shouldn't be interfering with.
I think we get the message here. Thank you for your input, Jim, from the sideline there. So much appreciated. Any other questions for you, Tracy?
Thanks, Chair Sharon. I just wondered if you could, you've said in your submission that you're an opponent of our business model. Can you just, and I know it's not quite related to the bylaw, but I was just trying to understand the business model you're referring to, because I know we have looked more, a user pays.
Yes. The business model of that no business can be run the way you people run. No business. If I at home, so we for the people that don't know me, we farm. If I buy 20 tractors and I can't cope with it, the bank will tell me where I need to go. And so next thing I have to sell my tractors and scale back my business to what I can afford. None of it at the council level. The council level is back every time. This year we're getting 5%, next year 10%. We've already talked about 15.6% or whatever we were talking about before. You just come back for more all the time. There is no, if you're a proper business, you should be able to contain within your budget what you're doing. You're interfering with more and more all the time. This bylaw is, and that's why I put it in there. This bylaw is a perfect example of stuff that next thing you're going to have compliance officers going around whether I've got a rooster there or not. Or to see whether my dog is spayed or that sort of thing. We have got no business there. If the dog is getting beyond my boundaries, if the rooster is a nuisance beyond my boundaries, normal law should take care of that. We shouldn't be interfering with all that sort of thing. We need to stick to our basics. That's what our budget is for. That's actually our brief, to control basic amenities, nothing else. That's where you're going over the top. That's why you're keeping coming back to the people that pay your bills all the time for more, because you're not able to budget properly and you're sticking your nose in stuff where your nose shouldn't be in.
Well, I think we're just going to draw this one to a close. So thank you very much, Henny. I know you've probably been out there carving today. So
I'm not the only one.
I know.
I didn't feel that.
Sorry, I do feel that, all my points, and particularly the mayor and your crew, you need to get real. That's really what I'm trying to get across here. So I hope that there's some common sense coming to the party here. Thank you very much.
We are deliberating on what we've heard from today towards the end of the month, but really want to thank you for taking the time to be able to put pen to paper and then come in and speak so passionately to all of us here today. So thank you, Henny.
I would like to add that I'm unimpressed with your way of informing the community. I've heard other community groups that have had a heap of people up in arms and are able to steer a heap of people, that do a lot better job of getting in the picture. I was told we are gonna be live streaming. That is because I don't get out much. So if there's live streaming, that's fine. Or if there's a submission hearing like this, that's fine. People should know about it. I thought I'd be smart, go on my phone and look at my Anteno thingy there. There is no point having an Anteno app ready if there's no information on it. And I've scrolled quite a way back.
So,
If we got that sort of thing, then we want to be able to inform our
so
people.
one of the reasons I insisted on you pushing the button, even though we can hear you loud and clear, this is being recorded. So if you went back up on the website in a couple of hours or went onto YouTube, you'd see yourself on TV.
But I probably disagree with your idea of me yelling. However, I am loud. That's wrong. But it is something I think that the councillor wants to work on. That we are getting a better connection with the very people that put you in the job here.
So thank you for your feedback. There are officers in this room that are responsible for those areas. So I'm sure they've heard. Thanks a lot, Henny.
Thank you.
Going back to do some carving, no doubt. Right, Robin from Totally Vets, are you able to come forward? And you've probably seen how the technology works. Are you comfortable with that? Awesome. So thank you very much, Robin. You've sent us a submission which for everyone is on page 373. So we've all had a chance to read that, but really appreciate you coming in to speak to it.
Thank you. So I am Robin Howe and I represent both the Tararua Breeding Centre and myself as a landowner in Woodville. My sole role for the past 35 years has been working daily handling all male animals, bulls, rams, bucks, stags and stallions. So some background to this submission. The Tararua Breeding Centre complies with the export division of MPI to be a licensed export semen and embryo collection centre. We are audited yearly by Assure Quality and comply with the Animal Products Act of 1999, the Germplasm Industry Code of Practice 2020, the OIE Terrestrial Animal Code, and the Animal Welfare Act amended 2022. So I do have an intimate knowledge of rules and regulations around farming animals. We run 3 sites for the breeding centre, of which 2 of them border the urban area. All our properties are double fenced with internal fencing is all electrified, which contains all our bulls and our rams, and we also house rams. We employ 10 people who work with all our male animals daily. Semen collection is a physical job where we handle the bulls and rams in close quarters. These animals have never been handled before and are our paramount importance is our health and safety. So the reason given in the draft notice stated noise, smell and safety as the reason for this proposal. I do support the concept of having rules and regulations around farming animals in an urban environment, but the contents of what you are proposing are not based on a sound knowledge of farm animals and does nothing to control the real issue. Excluding bucks and stags, because they do unfortunately smell when they're in the rut or in the raw, there is no extra smell or noise from the other male species. I can assure you from a well-educated point of view, there's no validity in the idea that they produce extra noise or smell. There are safety reasons, yes, but this is not just the male of the species. Safety is paramount for all sexes and classes of farming animals, and no animals, male or female, should be taken for granted or trusted. The emphasis, I feel, should be on containment, control and handling of farm animals in an urban environment, not the sex of the stock. Even a hot heifer or ewe on heat can be dangerous and more dangerous than a bull or a ram. A spoilt farm animal, whether it's female, male, weathered, steered, can be a very dangerous animal as well. It is how it is contained and handled that is the issue. Any loose farming animal roaming the streets is a danger, irrespective to the type or sex of the animal.
That looked like you were going to say some more.
It was, but
Take your chance, Robin.
The main reason behind all this is that we do run a commercial business. We are owned by Totally Vets, which is a very large veterinary company where we employ a lot of vets and a lot of people to work with all the male species. We are all bull and ram and buck orientated. And to actually ban classes of stock based on the sex has no boundary. There are very dangerous animals out there and they're not all males. And to put the males into one category is disadvantaging those people who have a couple of sheep and want to put a ram out. It also disadvantages us if we have to shut down our commercial operation because we bound to the urban area.
Right. Thank you, Robin. It allows us time to ask you some questions, and I know Councillor Johns here is quite keen to do that. So,
thank you, Robin. This bylaw applies to urban areas. You're not in an urban area.
We bound to the...
No, but you're not in an urban area.
No, but we are on the urban area boundary.
Doesn't matter.
But if people are in the urban area and complain about, if there's an animal on that outside, on that boundary fence.
Residential, it would apply. If you're like had a couple of acres and a ram or any other animal, then it does apply. But in your case, it doesn't. As far as I'm aware. Right, Jim?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, yours to be right.
Sorry, so what happens then when the council are looking at the rezoning of one of our properties, which is Bevan Street? So if this bylaw goes ahead and my Bevan Street property comes under the urban area, I am then affected. So you've got to look forward into what, if this bylaw comes in and then we rezone Bevan Street, which is one of the properties, as an urban area, then this bylaw comes into effect for us.
Jim can, I'm sure Jim can answer that.
Yeah, if you're rural now and the urban growth sprawls out and it comes to your property, you'll have an existing use right. So it still won't affect you.
Is that written? Is that something that's written down that it's a pre-existing usage and that it can't be affected by other bylaws?
Through the chair, that rule is in the Resource Management Act, published in 1991, trumps our bylaw.
Yep, that's fine for the centre, yes.
Any other questions for Robin? Fantastic presentation, Robin. The reason why all of us around this table value the enthusiasm and the commitment that people make to come in and speak to us, it gives us a chance to hear the reality and to look people in the eye and know that there is a story and a person behind each of the submissions we've received. So thank you very much for taking the time to do so. It's appreciated. Right, team, how are we going? We are, I think Kirsten's here as a chair. Yep. Kirsten, you're up if that's okay. We've got you down for 2 submissions. You're only talking on one. Which one are you going to talk on?
Just join them together.
Join them together. Are you okay with 10 minutes, which could include question time? Okay. So, well, there's been a few before you, but Heaney knows how to do it. So welcome and thank you for coming on board. For Council's benefit, it's page 308 and a combination of 303 and 378. We'll go with you, Kirsten. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I did have 2 submissions and I am just joining them both together. I'm sure you will get the very quick brief as what my intentions are. So 26th of July, Federated Farmers alerted us to the council's intentions of new keeping of animals bylaws. This post was shared on the Denneberg AMP Facebook page, concerned it would affect not only us, but our entire urban community. And we wondered whether we were slow off the mark or in knowing, or in fact, the entire community and district was as well. So on behalf of the AMP Association, of whom I am the president, it is my moral obligation to ensure integrity is upheld for the association and the community, which we are reliant on and appreciative to. Turns out a slight public outcry was there. Our assumption was correct, and even though the council had done its lawful due diligence, they had failed to connect with the men and women living in this community and surrounding districts, almost entirely. 27th of July, I sent an email to an MP and 2 councillors. By lunchtime, I had spoken to the MP and received a phone call from a James Single, the council's regulatory services manager. Is he here? Hello, James. We had a 13-minute civil conversation where he calls the Facebook post A, inappropriate, and B, an overreaction. In that conversation, he stated numerous times that the council would be happy to work with the AMP in regards to exemptions and permits. On a leaving note, a request to alter the post to lessen men and women's antagonised behaviour. As much as I was grateful for the fruitful attempts to cloud my judgment and ensure the survival of our historic showgrounds, it niggled me that the whole principle had not been acknowledged. Council is not in power, it is in service. Both total polarities, and this council is demonstrating quite loudly its mistaken perception of its true role. This bylaw is a clear example of council imposing servitude, serfdom and debt bondage, all of which are forms of slavery. Funnily enough, we live in a country where slavery is prohibited in all its forms, and every count carries a sentence of up to the top end of 14 years. This information is in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, United Nations 1967, which New Zealand signed up to in 1978. But you see, agents of the Crown, such as our Mayor and councillors, claim that they are not liable at this particular point in time because they're only acting in line with what they were told to do and didn't realise they were enacting acts and statutes that were acts and statutes and bylaws that enslave living men and women. You see, for a prohibited action to be a criminal action, and for these agents and councillors to be held individually responsible, we need to remove that pesky little claim of ignorance. The New Zealand Crimes Act 1961, Section 98, covers dealing in slavery and defines slavery as including debt bondage and serfdom. And the way the council has imposed rates on us in perpetuity, using our properties and ourselves, and surely, can't read my own writing, and surety for their debts equates to debt bondage. This bylaw is yet another example of the rapidly increasing pattern of council overreach into our lives, which we do not accept. To clarify for the record, your corporation administering every landowner's affairs within a specific area equates to actions of servitude. When you assume you have the right to administer our affairs, thinking you can use legislation as a shield to avoid your own personal culpability, you remove our ability to self-determine. An act of enslavement prohibited in all its forms under the International Covenant on Political and Civil Rights, United Nations, 1967. So in that, I hereby give you councillors 5 working days to either prove this bylaw does not breach Section 98 of the New Zealand Crimes Act 1961 or to correct any aspect of which it does. End of my story.
Thank you, Kirsten. We'll got at least one question here if you're happy to take a question from Councillor Johns.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsten. What is your primary concern regarding the AMP grants?
My primary concern is that implementing permits, which can escalate greatly with your $100 estimation, you're just controlling everybody. And the AMP grounds, yes, might get an exemption, but once again, as I stated, this is the principle of the matter. You are using the community to entrap for your own use. And the showgrounds is just one small part of our community. We need it. We need the community. So together,
Are you aware that it's not urban land and therefore the rule doesn't apply?
are you aware that we are half? Are you aware that we are half urban and half rural? It is stated half urban and half rural. I've done a little bit of homework. And we are not just a showgrounds, we are a farming entity. So we farm sheep, we have rams. Do we need 2 permits? Or do you give us an exemption for our farm, which doesn't seem fair for the rest of the community? Which is why I can combine both of my submissions in one, because I also live in a rural area. Maybe rezoning might turn that to urban, but this just gets personal. The community are passionate people, and you have to understand that people are going to get annoyed about it. We don't like being told what to do. We don't like our freedom being taken away. When you are not, the people that you are administering to implement these permits, I can guarantee you will not be educationally up for the job. I've had one pure example of dealing with this council with the pound, where I had to come and save the day because your employees were not capable. And it was over a heifer.
We're not going to go down that track at the moment though, Kirsten. Are there any other questions? Regarding the submission. Councillor Scott.
Thanks very much, Chair Sharon. Thanks for coming in, Kirsten. I was one of the councillors that you emailed, and I think I emailed you back fairly quickly. So I certainly appreciate your submission and the time that you've taken and take many of the points that you've raised on board. I suppose I have just a bit of a wider question, because some of what you've talked about today seem quite a bit stronger than some of the posts and some of the submission, especially some of that emphasis on servitude, on slavery. So from your perspective, and I guess you're submitting on behalf of AMP as well, do you think and do you believe that council should be able to make any rules at all within urban areas? Or do you think that we should stay right out of that and just let people do whatever they want to play to create some guidelines?
No, I absolutely agree that we need rules, but we have bylaws in place now. And I just walked in as someone else was talking about bylaws in other communities, and yes, there might be some, but we're a rural district and community. We're not Auckland, we're not Tauranga, we're not Taupo, we're not Hastings and Napier. If people want to live in a rural community, there are a few things that they might just have to suck it up. You move to a property that's surrounded by paddocks, what do you think is going to happen? It's common sense. And I absolutely believe that we do have to have rules in place. No one wants a boar living in someone else's backyard.
That's fine.
Yeah, no, totally. But I think the bylaws that currently stand are sufficient enough if the council does their job in implementing them properly.
Any other questions for Kirsten? Can I just endorse the passion and commitment and thank you very much for representing both a very valuable organisation in our community plus yourself, Kirsten. So thank you very much for coming in.
We deliberate at the end of August for any changes or proposed based on what we hear into the bylaw, the draft.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Yeah. You're good to. Yeah. You've seen how the technology operates, don't we? So councillors, this is Beck's submission is on page 375. So we've all had a chance to read that, Beck, so take us through any key points you want to highlight.
Cool, so I can start. So my name is Beck Smith. I am here this afternoon to talk to you about the proposed keeping of animals bylaw. I am Dennevirke born and bred and have lived here all my life, qualified as a chef at 17, set up my own cafe at 21 and still here. I'm also a beef farmer, raising calves to sell as weaners, keeping the best to grow my own breeding herd, which is what you're all about. In short, I am a young, enthusiastic, hardworking business person, exactly the sort of person that you council people should be bringing to Dennevirke. Due to the current land prices, I cannot afford my own block of land, so I lease family land. One of these blocks is on 16 acres, a family farm on High Street. This block has been a working farm since the late 1800s, and it was originally owned by William Andrews, who owned the Andrews Hotel. My family then purchased it in the mid-20s, sold it in the late 1940s, and purchased again from the Dennevirke Hospital Board in the early 1970s. That is a total of 70 years that this family has owned, and it's been a working farm. Over the years, the successive councils have tinkered with the land zoning, meaning that this property is now zoned half rural, half residential. The council's proposed bylaw would render this property completely useless to me and my family as part of our cattle breeding enterprise and would put my entire business probably gone, to be fair. My objection to this bylaw are pretty simple. I object to being told what to do on my own land. As farmers, as we already are bound by regulations regarding stock control, animal health and welfare. This proposed bylaw only adds yet another layer of red tape and regulations that we do not need. Council clip the ticket again. The sale value of the property as a whole would drop dramatically. There is no intention to sell this property, but if changed or forced to sell, who would buy it and who would be able to farm it? I object to having my business threatened by a council that is supposed to be supporting us. I also object to being subject to the whims and fancies of neighbouring residents. As I have stated before, this property has been a working farm since the late 1800s. If somebody wishes to buy or rent a property next to an established working farm, then they need to realise beforehand what that means. Yes, farms are noisy. Yes, farms are not always pretty. Yes, farms sometimes smell and muddy, but that's what you get when you live next to a farm. Is that person chose move next to a farm. Don't expect the farm to change to suit them. I also object to being told what I can graze, that I cannot graze cattle or entire animals. 8 years ago, I ran 80 ewes on this property and lost money, as most sheep farmers probably are now. By raising calves, including bull calves, and selling at 100 kgs, I am making enough money for the property to pay the rates and improve the area.
This is how your proposed new bylaw will affect my business, my family's property, and there are many more properties and residents in the rural town that will be affected in different ways. As a council, I seriously need you to reconsider all the overreaching, the over-controlling piece of legislation that does absolutely nothing to improve the district, and in fact will hamper the council's ability to attract new residents to the area who want to buy a piece of paradise in Danneberg. Thank you. Okay, questions?
Well, I have a question that I'm hoping Jim might be able to answer, which might clarify. So, and I guess it's a technical one, Jim. We've just had 2 examples where we've got a mix of rural and urban enclosed. Based on the submissions we've received today, it's been clarified that if it's an existing use, then even if the urban sprawl went all round you, Beck, it's an existing use, so you do what you do. But I guess it's been mulling over my mind based on what you said and also what Robin referred to, was the neighbour, if they're in an urban setting and Beck's bull calves were behaving as bull calves do, a complaint from a neighbour there, because you're right, Beck. I mean, if they buy next to a farm,
They want a farm. And to be fair, they want the pretty views. They bought the property because they like being next to some sheep, some lambs and some cows, and it's not fair.
so I'm curious to understand, because the bylaw is there to give some grunt if a complaint around a nuisance or a safety issue is made. If that's come from the urban side of Beck's fence, what happens?
Through the chair, I tell them exactly what Beck just said. So, with an existing use right, you've got nothing to fear.
Okay.
In fact, you've got to be commended, if they are particularly passionate. You've got nothing to fear. And in fact, I think, because we've got new submitters since lunch, and they might have missed it, but this is not a new bylaw. This is a review of an existing bylaw which had the same constrictions or rules in it 6 years ago. So this has been going, the reason we're reviewing it now is because the law says we have to review them every 5 years. We're a year late because we've been
Other things.
it's a 2-year buffer allowed by government to review the bylaws. After this one's done, once it's been reviewed once, it goes every 10 years. So it'll come up again then. I take on board what people say about they didn't know. We did comply with the lawful requirements for the 1 month submission period. And I guess it's a good reminder to people to try and check your social media or whatever a bit more often. But having said that, we'll take it on the chin and we'll make sure we try and engage a little bit more, because I was very disappointed to see the information that came through on Facebook. I was asked by Councillor Gilmore to contact Kirsten, which I did, and I thought we had a pretty good discussion. And you thanked me and you said you'd cleared it up, and you actually said you'd take it down, because I was concerned about the snowballing effect with misinformation. And I'm still concerned about that. People are welcome to come in and come and see me if they've got an issue and they don't understand. But, I don't know what more else we can do. We have to have rules in place because there are people we get.
To be fair, it's not written in your bylaw.
That's right.
So your bylaw pretty much states it's entirely you're taking away our rights to breed with a ram, our entire rights. So we can only graze sheep. So you're taking our entire rights away from our own land, but that's what it states.
No, it doesn't quite state.
It does in many ways. It's very misleading. It's not
What
written.
it says is if you want to do something to keep an animal there that is not expressly forbidden in the bylaw, well, that is expressly forbidden in the bylaw, then you need to apply for a permit.
Yeah.
And all that means is we
Yeah.
will come out to make sure, because we get so many complaints.
Yeah, but that's also my problem. I back onto 20 properties. I'm half and half. So how does that, as you said, how is that going to work?
So you've got an existing use right.
Yeah.
This farm is being farmed. Box.
Well, yeah.
So you're exempt.
Oh, that's great, but how does that affect people who, like, for example, on Cole Street, who have lifestyle blocks of 10 acres, who are same, you know, same thing? I think it should be said, I think it should be stated.
Well, it's actually a different thing to bylaw. It's actually part of the Resource Management Act, which is the government legislation which came in 1991. So we are simply patching the holes, which every district must do.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Legislation that for problems that occur in the area, which gives us the tools to address it. Because if you were a resident in an urban area and you were getting woken up every morning, 3 a.m. by a rooster, you'd be surprised what people will do when they get too far. And that's just one. And
I get that. I just simply stating it. Maybe the council needs to state that we could be exempt. Like that, it needs to be said louder.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of having these conversations, Beck. So once again, thank you so much for coming in, taking the time. It's been a very enlightening day. I'm sure I probably speak for all councillors that I've learned a few things along the way that I would prefer at this stage, Kirsten, if you're happy to stay till the end, if we've got, because we've still got 2 more presenters, then I'm more than happy to perhaps, if we've got time, to propose a 5-minute question and answer if that's of any use. Is that what you want to cover off, or do you wish to?
It's something that I wanted to ask a question in relation to just what Bexit had said or what James had actually stated.
Okay, so I have the discretion, if you ask me through the chair to ask a question of Jim and he's comfortable about it, then I'm sure we can. It's not going to take too long, is it?
2 seconds, I believe you can answer my question.
Are you okay with that, Jim?
So my question being, we have existing bylaws, grand. They currently obviously work for the 4 existing areas.
Yeah.
Lots of things. If you're saying that current urban properties are already exempt, what? No, but like you just said, that Bex could still farm her land
Based on her current use
based on her current use.
Yep. as a working farm. It's when it's done, and that is covered by other legislation, the RMA.
So is this actually going to solve your crowing rooster at 3 a.m? If Bex has a crowing rooster, is that going to solve the nuisance?
Well, that's why I was asking that one between urban and rural, but Jim will have the answer.
It appears you have one rule for one and now you're going to have another rule for another.
That's the whole, through the chair, that's the whole point. We've got to be consistent. And unfortunately, we know we've got some great farmers in the area, fantastic. I was a farming boy myself. I know about farms. But unfortunately, we also have some not so great farming practices going on in the district. So we have to have a bylaw that's wide enough to address the nuisances that we have. We get multiple complaints, many complaints about a wide range of things. You'd be absolutely surprised. And we have to be able to address them. We've got a lawful duty under the central government to be able to address someone's nuisance. If we don't have a bylaw in place, we can't do a thing about it. That is why councils have bylaws.
One more.
I could talk all day. No, I'll just leave it at that because I honestly could talk all day about it because, yeah, never mind.
I appreciate it, Kristen, and
I mean, as I said, we've all learned something today. And there were some submitters this morning that walked away with a completely different appreciation of that perspective. So thank you very much. We still have 2 presenters who are BJ and Barry, and you're going to do a double act. Welcome to the table. So you've obviously seen how the technology works, you two. If you want to cut each other off, just push the button and you'll be.
Take it on.
can we move one of those to the middle?
You can do whatever you like. So councillors, their submission is on page 222 and 223. So welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yeah, we're Mr. and Mrs. Barrett, BJ and Barry Cross. You know, we're parents, grandparents, farmers, landowners, and part of the Dannevirke community. You know, Our connection here is strong. Barry was born in Dannevirke almost 60 years ago, as were his parents, all his grandparents, his aunts, his uncles, and a lot of other family born, raised, and many now passed, who would all be turning in their graves knowing what their grandson and great-grandson is actually having to now fight in a community that they were once part of and loved. You know, it became my heart town as soon as we were married many years ago. And it's been a great place for us to call home. And like us, many people choose to live here because it's a rural community, because we're not Auckland City. Okay, you're not going to see a mob of cows running down Auckland City, but that's part of the novelty of living in a rural town. I ride my horses around the town. The children all come running out. Horsey, mummy, horses. And that is the excitement of a rural town. And that is why people want to be here. They can have at home their calves, sheep, children's pony, all within the view of mum baking the biscuits in the kitchen, watching over her children safely with those animals and learning all about nature and raising animals. Okay, and as many people in this community know, 2023 was a very hard year for us and a lot of other people, all within our community, starting with work accident for Barry, farmer, not involving male animals, where an infection then just about claimed his life, not knowing for days whether he was even coming home from hospital, walking or in a box. Okay, thankfully he was strong and well loved and pulled through. Then, of course, there's been many months of rehabilitation, stress and depression, all going back to that accident. Despite all of that, we held it all together, got through, things started looking up when recently, just February this year, celebrated the fruition of a lifelong dream of becoming landowners of our forever home in Dannevirke on 1.4 hectares. And that with our few animals, you know, we've got a mix of sheep, calves, chickens, my beloved horses, which are my hobby. It varies at any time which animals are there. Barry still manages a large farm in Waipark, sheep and beef farmer. Sometimes my horses are at home, sometimes they're at the large farm, sometimes they're at my sister's place in Haumoana on land. The sheep, if there's one that needs extra TLC, that will come home to me, whether it be a ewe, a lamb, a ram. If it needs the TLC, it will be home with me until it can then be back on the large farm. Same with the calves, bottle-fed calves, home with me before they can then go back onto the large farm. Why should we be penalised from having that? You know, and given what we've been through, it's grateful that this dream has now become a reality. And so hearing of this, like us and many other people at this late hour, we're not happy about it. We are angry. We are upset at the thought that you guys want to come in and tell us that you can't live peacefully on your own land that you own. You have to do as you are told on land that you own. What gives anyone else the right to tell us what we do on land that we own and that we have paid for with our hard-working money? None of you earned a single cent of that money to buy that property. Why should you have any say in what happens on that property? I don't feel Dannevirke needs this bylaw. Why? Because it's of no benefit to anybody within the Dannevirke town, no benefit to the men, women, children, families that live here and call Dannevirke home. It will have a negative impact on our community, and that is why we object to the submission and being told what we can and can't do on our own land.
Right, now my turn. Yeah.
You want to bring that microphone a little bit closer?
Closer. Yeah, all I do is farming. This morning I do it with heifers, bulls, male lambs, ewe lambs. They're all animals. You don't trust a single one. It doesn't matter what it is, it can turn on you. Okay, so this male thing, it's just, I can't see the point. And a fence is a fence. Where we are, our neighbour is rural. It's a fence. It's not soundproof. It's not pong proof. You know, it is a fence.
I just can't see what all this is achieving. It's like the honest people will obey, like with registering dogs, car, whatever. It's the honest people who will pay and who will follow it. Well, then what's the point? Surely we should be out, making sure all the dogs are registered, doing other things. I've managed farms for, you get on with your neighbours. And if I'm farming bulls, my neighbour's farming heifers, you work so everyone's happy. If someone has got a rooster that's crowing at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm not happy with it, I'll talk to him in a nice way. You've got to be real about it. Laws, it's this or that. It's taking away what we should be doing, which is talking to each other and finding out, I would never, ever have an animal on our place that would be dangerous. My 88-year-old mum comes and visits. She wants to be able to walk out there. My granddaughter wants to be a farmer. I've been down what it's like to be hurt. You don't want to be hurt. That's what I mean. An animal's an animal, which is just like a human. They can turn on you, they change. We got to talk more than just bylaws. Thank you.
So I'd like to know around that existing usage thing, where our property fits into that existing usage. And I have emailed you, James, and I don't think I've had a reply yet. I haven't done it lunchtime today, so.
He is entitled. We know where he's been.
So we personally fit in with that because the property we have purchased, our neighbours, as Barry says, we are on the town bound. We are the final property. Our neighbours are the freezing works. We do not have house neighbours onto our paddocks. Our paddock neighbours are the freezing works paddocks. How do we fit in?
So you're, through the chair, you're urban at the moment?
Correct.
Right, so yeah, we wouldn't have a problem issuing you with a permit.
Why should I have to ask you for a permit?
Well, because we have to be consistent, everybody. When you say we don't need bylaws, I'd love if we lived in a perfect world. It put me out of a job though. And the reason I was late was I was chasing a pig up the main street.
I will not be asking for permission. Can I bring my horses home, please, for the weekend? Please let me have my horses at home for the weekend. I will not be begging. I am not going to beg you. I'm not going to ask permission to have my animals, who are my children, come to my property. Next year, we wanted me to ask if my grandchild can come to my property, because my animals are my equal to my children.
And also, what are these permits going to cost? That's another cost. I'm working my butt off now.
Okay.
So
Well, it's just one at a time. Let Jim breathe.
Yeah, through the chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what have I replied to your email?
I get that.
You got me outside and I had 15 minutes for lunch.
That's why I said I've emailed you, but I'm just, you don't know.
So the reason is we have around about 1,500 complaints a year relating to bylaws of keeping of animals in an urban area, some in the rural area, and many with dogs. Dogs aren't actually, they've got their own dedicated bylaw because they're a different kettle of fish entirely. But that's how many complaints we're kind of looking at every year. And that's just for this bylaw. So when you say, I'll go and talk to the guy with the rooster, we do that. We visit multiple times, we put out letters, multiple letters, and they still don't comply. We still get complaints. They go to the ombudsman. Why aren't you doing anything about it? So this is why we have to have a bylaw. We have to address complaints.
Understood. So you have that many complaints about animals per year. How many complaints do you get per year about people racing cars around streets, people with that? Why don't you focus on things like that? That causes more of a danger than somebody's animal in their own backyard. They likely to kill somebody's child.
Sorry, BJ, we're going to go down a rabbit hole. I mean, we could sit here and argue and debate this all afternoon. The point that you've made is an extremely valid one, and it's been repeated through a number of presentations we've had today. So I think around the table, you've got a real sense that we hear you. I just want to reinforce this is not a new bylaw. That this has been in place, and I guess by raising it up and saying we're reviewing it, it's brought the fantastic engagement that we've had. And this is what we want. This is what I know it sounds awful, but we love this because yes, we do. Because this is what this is our community sitting here. It's not a book, and it's not a piece of paper. So just eternally grateful. The deliberations we have on the 28th of August, I think, are going to be absolutely fantastic around this table. And that'll be a public, people can come along and hear how we've debated and questioned dear old Jim and his team around some of these issues, because it just highlights to us the value in not changing what I mean, I'm a farmer. I'm with you on this. I always want to be able to farm and not seek permission for it. But remember, the purpose of this bylaw was to keep consistency, safety, and there was some tools in our toolkit if the nuisance value had to be addressed. So look, really appreciate, you've heard me say it a number of times, but there's so much value in looking you two in the eye and being able to hear the principles and the ethics behind the not wanting to shut down everything about being in this fantastic community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You say you hear us, but we honestly don't feel heard. Thank you.
I appreciate that. But thank you for your time and commitment to being here. Right. I don't believe it. Being on time. Right. Can I, before everyone leaves though, because we're going to be adjourning and we're going into I need to accept a recommendation. Let me close the meeting. Right. So can I just go back? We better do this properly. So item 7.4, councillors, the recommendation is that we hear the submissions on the proposed keeping of animal bylaws, alcohol, cemeteries and public places, that we have received those. And I hear Councillor Wallace has moved that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Naima Chase. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. And I now bring this committee meeting to a close. Thank you for everyone's attendance. A special thank you to the members of the public that have come along to contribute and listen in.